Okay, pretty much ready to get our final render now. I just want to drop a floor, a light, and add a texture to the floor as well. So, and get our render ready to go. So let's go ahead and we'll merge. Oops. Well, first I'm just gonna use these few agents at here. So in a minute I'll get rid of this delete so we get all of our agents back. But just to set up the floor so everything's running nice and quickly, I'll just leave it like this for a moment. And let's drop a grid for the floor. Okay, and let's make it, whoops. Maybe I'll just leave that on the template. I always forget what it's called. Don't know why that's happening. Okay, and now we need the grid to be much bigger. Bigger stuff, probably like 150 is fine. Okay, just play forward a bit, make sure we don't see beyond in any of the shots there. Okay, let's give ourselves a bit more resolution. We need UVs on this. So just a quick and simple UV project. An UV quick shade to have a look. See how this looks. Oops. Okay, so if we just go to initialize, I think we can use best plane, initialize, there we go. Let's just scale this a little. So I think I want it to be smaller. There we go. Don't know why there's a -80 there. That shouldn't really matter anyway. And they're back to front. It shouldn't matter without material, but just in case there's anything kind of legible in your texture, spin that round. Okay, they're upside down, but that doesn't matter. They're if the camera was facing the other way, you'd see it. Great. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Let's drop a material for that. Call it, well, we don't have a material yet, so we'll just call it floor, and then just make sure that when we make our material, we call it floor in a minute. Make sure we have normals on that as well. Let's merge these together. There. Great. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's drop a light first. So we'll use and make sure we don't have a light on there. No, we'll use an environment light, and we'll just use one of the HDRIs that Houdini provides. So let's see, what do we want to use? Let's try. So if you come here into the Houdini HDRIs, I'm going to use, where is it? This one. Drop that light, and now we get a nice strong sun with this. And drop the intensity down to 0.5. Transform doesn't matter really because the camera's going to be spinning around also. Great, so let's jump back into our render. Take a look at that. We don't want the scene view now, we want the actual camera. There we go. Cool. So we got a kind of default material on the floor there. So we need to make our material for the ground. Principled shader. Make sure we call this floor. I don't know if it will change now. Yeah, see, it's picking up that color, the material correctly. So we got some textures for this, which I showed you earlier. Here, these textures. Okay, so we'll drop them in. So first of all, let's make sure the color is set to white because the color texture that we drop in will be multiplied by this. So the base color, find that, go to my hip textures, which are here. And the marble checkered albedo. Drop that in. Very cool. I think it's obviously too big, so let's go ahead and drop that down. We can do that in here in our UVs. Scale, drop that down. Whoops, not 0.05 I want. Cool, that's looking good. What else? So we've got a roughness map as well, so I'll grab that. We've got roughness, go ahead and find that. Roughness. And make sure, again, this will be multiplied by the roughness here, so I'm going to put that up to 1. Good, and I'm not going to use the height map. We don't need it at this distance, and the difference will be very small. But we're going to use a bump map, the normal map, I mean, sorry. So let's go ahead and find that normal map. And I'm going to push the scale up quite a bit to 3. Looks good. Okay. These shadows are quite harsh, so I'm going to bring them down to, can bring the intensity down to 0.5 there. You can see them soften up quite a bit. Maybe push it back up to 0.8. There we go. So it's looking good. What else do we want to do? The depth of field. We can add in the depth of field. Okay, so for that we use the sampling. Well, first we go into our out, to our mantra node, make sure that we have physically, not micropolygon, physically based rendering. Let's allow depth of field and motion blur we're going to add in. But we'll look at that a bit later. And go back into our camera. Let's find the, so yeah, the focal distance is going to be, I'm going to push that up to 20. So you can do that in the scene view here as well. So if I make sure this isn't checked, so I'm in my camera now, and we can, I think it's already on there actually. If I right click and go to focus handle, you can see this is where my focus is. So I'm going to have agents here and behind, so I want it in the middle there. Okay, and then the f-stop will control how blurred everything is. So let's drop that down to 1.5. Leave that at radial, that's fine. Put the render back on. And what else do we need? We need we need the velocity. So actually, I'll leave that off for a minute. Let's go drop in a trail under here, and that will bring in our velocity attribute. So if we go to compute velocity, check our geometry spreadsheet, and here, and then we should see some velocity. On the first frame there's not any. That's okay. If we head forward a little bit, skip forward a bit, hopefully we should see some. Yeah, there we go. So we got the velocity working there, and that should give us some nice motion blur. So maybe I'll just turn that back on again and connect these up so we just get a few of the men as well. And jump into our render view. Go back to the first frame. Go and give ourselves some more samples. Like I said, nothing's taking that long here, so I'm just going to bump this up to 7 or 6 should be fine, I think, depending on the how much depth of field we've got. But yeah, I think 6 should be fine. Let's give ourselves diffuse limits. Let's give ourselves some more bounces of diffuse light, so lighting up from bounces from the floor. which always, you know, helps with the realism. Okay, now I'm just going to let this render out. I'm going to turn off the progressive render and get a full render. I'm going to add in all my agents first. So bypass both of these. So that will take some time because we're unpacking 2,000 agents there now. Just give that some moments to cook through. Okay, that seems to be done. It did take a few minutes to unpack all of them. Let's see if we can get a render with all of our agents in together on the first frame. Let me just see if we've actually got velocity on the first frame. I don't know if we will. Oh yeah, we do. Okay, great. So you can see even the, yeah, it's taken quite a while to preview this. Okay, so I got my agents in here. Let's try and get a render. Click render. I'll come back in a moment when that's finished. Right, so that render is done. Didn't take too long, about 13 minutes you can see there per frame for 720 by 1280. It's up to you what resolution you want. Just going to the motion blur is a bit over the top here, and I think it's not using the actual velocity. I think this is because of the camera rotation. So I'm just gonna, yeah, if you shift click and drag over one of the agents, move over, and then we just need to come into render sampling and then go to velocity blur, so that Mantra uses the velocity attribute to calculate the motion blur. So I'll just click, let's just try and get that render out again and see if it looks a bit better. See, it should be different depending on, you know, because the arms and the legs will be spinning, will be moving at different speeds to the whole agent. And that's what I want to capture. There we go. So there you can see there the hands are blurred and the feet are more blurred than the rest of the body, which kind of I prefer. Okay, so yeah, you can see we got the depth of field working. Might need a few more samples there, but you know, that's going to be difficult to work out anyway, as it's in the back. The noise won't be so distracting. So yeah, if you want to render out your sequence, you obviously come up here to the top. I'm just going to stop this to make sure we don't update this anymore. Render frame range. We've only got 300 frames. It's up to you how many frames you render. It's all pretty, you know, similar. The whole simulation is not much changing. So you know, it's up to you how many frames you render. So yeah, do 300. You can choose your extension here. So yeah, save it in your hip render file. Hip name, I don't like to use that, so I'll put I don't know, crowd. Let's do crowd week 1 dot version 1. I don't want $OS. $F3 is fine. We've only got, you know, we don't go up to 1,000 frames. .exr, or you can use JPEGs, PNGs, TIFFs, or whatever. You can add in your extra image planes if you're going to do any compositing on top of this. I'm not going to bother. And that's pretty much it. Ready to go.